Hey guys, welcome to today's live stream. It is Sunday afternoon here in Phoenix, Arizona, in my temporary office here in my condo. I just got done working out. I'm a little hot and sweaty, but let's dive right into your question. I am ready to go. We are live streaming on YouTube and I believe Facebook. And of course, I forgot to tweet out. Anyway, let's get into it here, guys. For those of you who have not checked out, make sure you look at Rebel Capitalist Pro. That is my investing website. It is for members only, and it is absolutely amazing. That's why I partnered up with the best in the business, Lynn Alden and Chris McIntosh. The website or the membership forum, whatever you want to call it, has their research. We do live streams every single week. And in fact, this week, today, right after this live stream, I'm going to hop over there and answer some questions for the members. And it's fantastic. You guys have to check out. You'll absolutely, what I can guarantee. And right now, my marketing guy, Gene, has a trial offer where you can check out for $1. You can't beat that, guys. It's at georgegammon.com/pro. Make sure you check that out. Okay, let's dive into the question, guys. Let me go right to the top. Oh, we got an audio echo. Yeah. Let me see here. I'll try to stay close to the mic. Usually that helps it out a little bit. Oh, audio is really bad. Let me see. Maybe my mic's not on. Let me check here. Give me one moment. Sometimes it turns itself off. Let's see. Test. It's on the mic. Double audio. No. This is the way the audio is set up every single time. Something is different. Let me. No, it's not the earbuds, guys. This is the way we do every time. Let me leave the studio. Let me leave the studio and come right back. Okay. Let's see. Let me. How's for the audio now? Is it still? Is the echo really bad? Yeah. It's on YouTube. Then yeah, maybe. Or well, no, we did Facebook last week. Let's see, guys. Let me know the stream here is a little bit. It's worse. It's got to be on YouTube end because everything on my end is the exact same as every other week. My volume is too high. Let's see. Okay, how about turn down the volume? How is it now? Anybody better? Test. Let's. Now the audio source. It's going to be worse. Trust me. If I use the other audio, that would be the computer audio. Better? Okay, maybe it's this automatic adjustment volume on StreamYard. Let me turn it down even a little bit more. No, it's still really bad. All right, well, let me try the computer audio. Okay, so now we've got the computer audio. Is that any better? Okay, test. Is that any better, guys? We've got the computer audio now. I've turned the mic off. Okay, so now I'm seeing that's better. It's good to go now. Okay. All right, well, let's go ahead and go with that. We'll just leave the computer. We'll leave the computer mic on now, and we'll just forget this. So I've got this Rode podcast mic, and that's the one I normally use. And you can see it's on. But anyway, I'll try to figure it out after the live stream. We'll just go with this. As long as we got something that's where you can actually hear what I'm saying, that's what's most important. Okay, let's get to the questions, guys. Right at the top, make sure you start the comment with questions so I can see it. Better know. And now, darn it, now the stream isn't working. I think this is on YouTube's end, because now the stream, I can't see your questions. Oh, my goodness gracious. All right, I can't get to the top of the chat stream, guys. Sorry. So I'm just going to try to pick out some random questions here. Now that Bitcoin has surpassed JP Morgan as the largest bank in the world, are we fully prepared to reset proof of concept, a transitional store of wealth till the USN notes are released? Listen, I'm really bullish on Bitcoin long term, as I am gold, but I get very uneasy when everyone's super excited. And if you see people on FinTwit, they're just going bananas whenever you post anything. I posted, I forgot it was something that wasn't involving Bitcoin, and everyone, oh yeah, it's like Bitcoin's going to 100,000, it's going to 1 million, it's going. And whenever I see that in anything, in Bitcoin or gold, I'm always like, boy, long term, I'm really bullish, but I don't know. It just seems like there could be a pullback a little bit when everyone kind of gets on one side of the boat. And it seems to me that's kind of where Bitcoin is right now. That said, it'll probably run to 30 or 40 grand. But it's like anything else. When I talk to people about an investment, and everyone thinks that it's a great idea, I'm always a little hesitant. And when everyone tells me that I'm absolutely crazy and out of my mind, then I'm like, okay, this is probably where I want to be. So, and again, let me be clear. I'm not saying you should sell your Bitcoin or it's going to crash or anything like that. I'm saying I'm long-term very bullish, but short-term I'm a little hesitant just because of all of the hype around it right now. Nothing close to the way it was during the last bubble or the last Bitcoin bubble, but just people seem to be getting very excited about it. Okay, and so I'm now going through all the audios when you guys were telling me about the audio. Okay. Oh, let me try to find a question. This is a train wreck today. I actually haven't had too many of these. Generally, the live streams go pretty smooth. So I guess I'm due for one of these every once in a while. Is if the Fed is planning on getting rid of LIBOR and removing banks as the middlemen, why are we not hearing any gripes, moans, complaints from the big banks? Well, I think you are. I mean, they're just flat out refusing to use LIBOR. Or I'm sorry, you're talking about SOFR. I'm getting mixed up here. They're just refusing to use SOFR, and they're only using LIBOR. So they're basically not just griping; they're giving the Fed and the central banks the middle finger. They're saying, no, screw your stupid SOFR. We're not going to use it. We're only going to use LIBOR, and we're going to continue to use LIBOR. And unless you want the whole thing to crash in on itself, then you better get rid of this SOFR thing or this SOFR idea. It seems as though there's kind of a Mexican standoff here where neither of them want to back down, and we'll see. I mean, the central banks keep pounding the table that you got to change, you got to change, you got to change, and the banks keep saying, okay, F you, we're not going to change, and we're just going to keep doing what we have been doing with LIBOR. So I was listening to a podcast with my good buddy Jeff Snyder and Emil Kalinowski the other day, and Jeff was saying that it's not even a matter of if they want to change to SOFR. He said it's a matter of they can't. They just simply can't. SOFR is not set up to have to give the type of information. He was talking about the term structure, that the term structure just isn't complete with SOFR. And that even if the banks wanted to switch from LIBOR over there, they couldn't. So it's just a matter. It's just in the Fed's just too. They've got their head in the sand, and they really don't understand how the whole system works, and they don't understand it well enough to know that that's not a solution. So what will probably happen is we get closer and closer to this 2021 deadline. Is the powers that be in the banking world will probably meet with the Fed and say, listen, here's what you guys don't understand about SOFR and LIBOR. And all of a sudden, the central banks, they'll kind of change their tune, or they'll somehow create a hybrid between the two or something like that. If there's a second round lockdown and another liquidity pullback, do you think that Michael Burry's ETF collapse happens? Well, I don't think there's going to be a liquidity pullback. I think there's going to be a solvency pullback is probably more realistic. I don't think you're going to have a problem with liquidity, but I don't think that's the problem. And now, to be more specific, I know what you're saying about Michael Burry's ETF projections, because the underlying assets of a lot of the ETFs, not all, but a lot of the ETFs are far more illiquid than the equities of the ETFs themselves. So this creates this really weird dynamic where you've got market makers in there that are buying when the price goes too low, and they're selling when the price goes too high to kind of even out the price, and they're buying and selling the underlying asset. But if you can't buy or sell the underlying asset, then you run into big problems. And so that's that could pose some problems with liquidity. But I think there's a bigger issue with the market in general, looking at the flows into passive and how that distorts the market wildly. And a great example of that is Apple. I mean, look at Apple has added like $1 trillion to its market cap over the last 4 months or so, maybe 4 or 5 months, and its revenues basically the same, and its projections are basically the same. Its profits, it really hasn't changed much at all, but yet somehow it's worth $1 trillion more. It doesn't make any sense. And the reason is because you have all this money flowing into it and into these passive funds. and it becomes a supply issue of stocks too. That's one thing that people don't really think through either. They don't think through they think through the demand of the stocks, but they don't think through the supply. And what happens if there's no more cells to share, or excuse me, no more shares to sell? Then you're going to have this price just bid up wildly, because the passive investors or the passive funds, they don't think, they have to buy at any price, and they have to sell at any price. So I think that, I mean, you've got so many risks in the market right now. It's just, I mean, you can't count them all, and it's just a matter of which risk is most probable. Well, I mean, if you have a huge collapse where the Fed put doesn't work anymore, like we saw in March, the Fed came out with quantitative easing infinity and all these repo transactions, and it really didn't do anything to the market. The market was down like 1,000 points the next day. So they came in with a government put where they announced the stimulus, and that's all fine and dandy until that runs out. And then what do? And it can run out, because look at Europe, look at Japan. Those markets have gone down regardless of the amount of QE or government spending they've done. So it's possible. And there's nothing that makes the United States stock market just impervious to going down. People just look at the United States and they ignore all the other stock markets around the world. It's like, okay, if Japan can go down for what now, 30 years, why can't the United States? Why can't the United States be lower in 30 years, adjusted for inflation and maybe in nominal terms, than it is today? I mean, if Japan can do it, we can do it. So that's what I find interesting too. People always argue, the people who want to glorify money printing, they always say, well, we can just keep printing money because look at Japan, they never had inflation. But then they like to look at that, but then they totally ignore the fact that the Japanese stock market is lower now than it was in 1990. And they like to ignore the fact that their real estate market is lower now than it was in 1990 in nominal terms. So they like to look at the fact that they printed all this money and didn't get inflation, but they like to ignore the fact that their economy, they completely destroyed their economy, their stock market, and their real estate market in the process. So it's kind of, they're cherry picking data there. How is my Colombian and St. Lucia citizenship going? Well, the St. Lucia stuff is just on hold. I was going to maybe, what I was doing actually is I was trying to see if we could qualify myself and my half sister, so we could get like a family deal. It's like, instead of like 100, maybe pay 150. And so it breaks it down to like 75 a piece. And I haven't followed up with that lately. And with Colombia, I mean, it is what it is. I've got a visa, an investor visa. It's good for 10 years. So it's basically like having a passport just to that one country. And so I can come in and out of Colombia as a citizen for the next 10 years. And I think I qualify for an actual passport, a Colombian passport, in either 3 or 5 years. But I've had it now for maybe a year or so. So maybe I'm down to like 2 years or 4 years. So I'm getting closer there. I can't wait to get a second passport. It's just, I mean, I've got a couple citizenships, or I'm sorry, a couple resident or visa, things. I think I've got one for Ecuador too, but I need to get a passport. Question, why do people see inflation right now? Economy is so bad, unemployment high, and there's much debt to be paid back. Because, Pascal, you're looking at the demand side of the equation. You're not looking at the supply side, nor are you looking at the fact that the government is now most likely going to continue to inject money. They're going to do QE for the people, let's call it. So instead of doing QE, where it's just an increase in bank reserves at the Fed, now they're doing QE where it increases bank reserves. And also, most likely, will increase M2 money supply significantly. Or what I should say is increase M2 money supply, or the amount of currency units that are in the commercial banking system, that are in deposit accounts, liabilities of the commercial banks, is going to increase that enough to actually create significant consumer price inflation. Now, is that kind of a one-off thing, or is that consistent? Who knows? And then, I mean, you've got to also factor in the central bank digital currency, because if we get a Fed coin and the Fed starts spending money, if they start turning their bank reserves into legal tender, and all that means is the Fed creates bank reserves. That's how they buy assets from the banking system, like mortgage-backed securities and treasuries. And if they were to take those bank reserves and turn them directly into deposits in the commercial banking system, that's basically taking those bank reserves and turning them into legal tender, because you're circumnavigating the commercial banking system. So, and that's where Dr. Lacey Hunt and others that are actual deflationists have openly said in the past that they would go over into the inflation camp, if not the hyperinflation camp. And so I think that that's going to be a part of our future, probably sooner than later, because when we do have that next deflationary bust in the asset prices, not saying that consumer prices will go down, but asset prices go down, the Fed and the government are going to come in and just throw everything at. See, right now they're kind of on pause. It's like they're just taking a deep breath, like, whew, all right, man, we got past that March thing and that cerveza sickness. Oh, we got asset prices back and we completely destroyed the economy, but who cares? The stock market's up and housing prices, they're up. And, you know, we created a massive amount of social unrest, and we created this environment where the rich will just get richer and the poor will get poorer, and the homeless has completely exploded, and we're defunding police and we're creating homeless people and we're giving them all drugs, but we got asset prices going up, so we got nothing to worry about. What could possibly go wrong in that situation, right? So we've got this type of economy, and it's like, as long as asset prices aren't going down, I think they've kind of taken a little bit of a breather, but a little sigh of relief. But as soon as asset prices start to go down, oh boy, then you got problems, because it's just like Peter Schiff always says, is the economy is just like a heroin addict. And I don't really know how heroin works, but you do, let's say, this much of it, and you get a certain level of high or intoxication, but you have to continue to do more and more and more and more to get that same level of euphoria, let's say. So the economy is no different. I mean, look at the Fed's balance sheet, for heaven's sakes. It goes to 800 million, then it goes to 4.5, now it goes to 7, the next it'll go to 10. I mean, it'll keep going up and up and up and up. And the government's, I mean, look at the government's deficits, for heaven's sakes. I was talking to Mike Maloney about this. And for those of you who didn't know, I interviewed Mike Maloney the other day. It was fantastic. We did a 2-part interview where the first part's on my channel and the second part will be on his channel. That'll be out Tuesday night. So check that out. But I was talking to Mike about this, and the government's deficit just this year is almost $5 trillion. $5 trillion. And nowadays, we're like, oh, trillion, who cares? Whatever. We'll just MMT it away. We can print that money. Does it really matter? We don't have to worry about inflation. People don't realize that the government from 1776 to 1996, 220 years, accumulated $5 trillion in debt. So we'll accumulate just as much debt this year alone, in 365 days. We'll accumulate just as much debt as we did in the first 220 years of the country being in existence. And where do you go from here? I mean, you think the economy is just magically going to get better? You think we're going to go through this you think Biden's going to come in, we're going to do 6 months of lockdowns or whatever, and the economy is just going to heal itself magically? It doesn't work that way. People forget that the economy is small and mid-sized businesses. That is the economy. The economy is not JP Morgan. The economy is not the government. It's not the Fed. It's not Klaus and Bigglesworth. It's just your local coffee shop. It's your local, nail salon. It's your local gas station. That's the economy. And if you shut down all of those businesses and then you just print up funny money and give it to J.P. Morgan and give it to the government, that's no economy. That's a banana republic. And sooner or later, that's going to come home, and it's going to come up. The chickens are going to come home to roost. It's going to be time to pay the fiddler. And so, I mean, my whole point is that you've got this divergence between asset prices and the real economy. And if we shut down the real economy again, and you're just going to have to create more and more and more of this monetary heroin. And I don't see how that doesn't overwhelm the deflationary pressures. And that's really the point of the question. Or I should say that was the thrust of my answer in a roundabout way. Okay, thoughts, heard of thoughts prophecy? I have not. Can you buy real estate with coins without converting to fiat money? I don't know. I mean, it depends on the seller. I'm sure you could find a seller that would take Bitcoin, but it's not going to be, I don't think you're going to find too many of them. Yeah. This is before the election. You said you're going to go to the polls and ask people questions and make a video. Yeah. I was going to do that, and I was super excited, but I'm actually here in Phoenix helping out a friend that just has a couple health issues. So unfortunately, during that time, they needed my help. So that's my number one priority, and that's a much higher priority than the YouTube channel. So I had to kind of shelf that, but I'm sure I'll do it. I mean, I'm sure we're going to have plenty of social unrest in the next few months. So that'll give me the opportunity to go out there and interview some of these people on when they were rioting and looting and everything. I was out of the country. I was in Medellin and I was in St. Bart's. So now that I'm back in the country, if we have a good old fashioned riot, I'll go out there. I don't care. I'll interview them. I'll interview Antifa. I'll talk to them about the Fed, and I'll see if any of the Antifa guys know anything about their drunk, insolvent Uncle Sam. Or I'll ask the Black Lives Matter people about Moody the Millennial, and I'll go to the next Black Lives Matter rally and see if I can find Moody the Millennial. It'll be like, Where's Waldo? I would love to do that. That would be awesome. So yeah, hopefully we'll get some good old riots here in the US of A, and I'll be able to interview some people and create some good content. And of course, for those of you who don't know, I'm joking. Obviously, I do not want riots. I do not want any type of violence. But if they're doing it, I wasn't joking about that. I'll definitely go out there and interview people for sure. Okay. Will banks ever start losing credit? Home loans are way harder to get, and lending seems fully dried up. Now, I don't know where you're getting this, Conrad. Do you see a point where lending hydrant is going to keep tightening? No, I don't know. I'm seeing the opposite. You've got to look at the data, and I'm sure for some people it might be harder to get loans, but if you look at the average down payment on a home right now, it's just as low as it was in 2005. So people said, back before the GFC, that anyone could get a loan, no money down, and it's crazy lending standards. Yeah, but now it's the same thing. You don't have to put any money down now either. And when I say the average is about the same, it's only about 5%. The average down payment right now today is only about 5%. So the days of 20% down, and those days are gone. And if you look at the average down payment, you'll notice that 20% was pretty much all the way through the end of the 1990s. And when that went away, magically we started having housing bubbles. Wow, shocker, right? When the banks were able to take those loans and offload them to Fannie and Freddie in 2 seconds, not saying that we've had mortgage-backed securities, I believe, since the 1980s, maybe the 1970s. I know Gunlock was dealing with mortgage-backed securities in the 80s. I was listening to an interview with him talking about that. But my point is that the lending standards were still pretty good as far as the down payment up into the late 90s. And that's when that all went out the window. So maybe you're having a tough time, but as far as from the down payment standpoint, I don't see lending standards being tight at all. And also too, if the Fed's buying all these mortgage-backed securities, that's what one of the reasons why the spread's going to go so low is because the Fannie and Freddie just offload them to the Fed. They've got an instant buyer there, and if the Fed's buying all of them, then the spread's going to go lower, and they're going to give them to more and more people because they don't have any risk. See, thoughts on commodity basket backed, thoughts on a commodity. Oh, I got to figure out how to stop this live stream or the chat feed. Backed by multiple commodities as opposed to just gold and silver, for example, that work be difficult to manipulate. Yeah, but I mean, I don't know why you'd back it by commodities when you could just back it by gold. I'm not sure what the upside to backing it by commodities would be. I don't know if that's too realistic because, yeah, I don't see, I think gold, I mean, it's worked really well in the past. I would just use gold. That's an interesting question. Jackie's asking, do you think rental property tax benefits will change under Biden presidency? Well, I mean, I'm assuming the specific benefits you're referring to would be the depreciation and maybe the interest write-off. I doubt it, Jackie. It might happen. It might happen locally, but I don't know. See, you're dealing with an asset that the economy desperately needs to continue to go up. Our whole entire economy is built on asset bubbles, and if you want proof of that, just in your mind quickly think about what the economy would look like if we halved the stock market and halved housing prices. I mean, we'd be done. We'd be done. I mean, you would have something and just think if it, like Japan, if it stayed like that for the next 5 years and they just stayed, I mean, think what happened with people's retirement. Think what would happen with consumption. Think what would happen with disposable income. Think about how many businesses would go under. Think about what would happen to unemployment. I mean, and I think I've got a huge advantage there because I've traveled so much and I've lived in so many other places around the world. And you juxtapose that to a country like Colombia. So Colombia, what would happen if the stock market went down by 50%? Quite literally, no one would even know. Like it wouldn't even make the news. Now, if housing went down in nominal terms by 50%, that would probably make the news. But it's happened back in maybe not 50%, but close when they had all those problems in the early 2000s. And in Medellin, for about a year or two, then it just went right back up. But there were just no buyers whatsoever. So it really just crashed and went back up. But, but you get my point, right? You go to a country like, well, pretty much any other country, any developing country that's not like a developed economy. Even the United States, especially, like even in Europe, I don't think it's as bad. Or even in Japan, I don't think it's as bad, where the whole entire economy is just asset prices. That's it. So, but you go to Thailand or Colombia or any of those places, and seriously, if the stock market goes down by half, they wouldn't even know. Like it wouldn't even, it just affect a very small group of people, and your average person wouldn't even care about it. Where in the United States, if our stock market goes down by 50%, the whole economy done. I mean, it tanks. You got people jumping out of windows. You've got, baby boomers are going to start moving back in with their kids. It's going to be the opposite of millennials moving in with their parents. The parents are now going to move in, or the grandparents are now going to move in with the parents as well. So you're going to have the millennials living with the parents and the grandparents living with the parents. And that's what would happen if the stock market went down. I mean, it would be catastrophic. So that's why whenever I say that the economy is built on asset prices, debt, and confidence, that's what I'm referring to. And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure it out. It's just a simple thought experiment. But so I got sidetracked there. Sorry, Jackie. My point is that I don't know that even a Biden or let's be honest, that President Harris would even do anything to mess with housing prices, because they know how detrimental that would be to their constituents and to the economy. Commercial banks get paid interest on excess reserves. Why would they loan the money? Okay, so you're not understanding how it works, Tez. Let me read your full question here for everyone. Commercial banks get paid interest on excess reserves. Why would they loan money into the real economy for low rates risk when they can get risk-free interest on their reserves? Because they don't lend out their reserves, Tez, excuse me. It's, how can I explain it? Okay, so I've got this water in this little jug right here. So let's just say these are my bank reserves, okay? And I've got this many bank reserves. The way you're thinking about it is you're thinking about, if I want to lend, let's say this much water to someone right here, and he's got a cup, I'm just going to pour the water from this into this cup. So now I've got this much left, and now he's got that much water in his cup, and I'm going to lend it to him. And then tomorrow he's going to come back or whatever, and he's going to pay me back the water, and then I'm just going to pour it in my jug again. Then I'm going to have the same amount of water or the same amount of bank reserves. It's not the way it works. So what happens is I've got this much water. This is the way it works. And I always have this much amount of water. If I want to create a loan, I don't lend out this water. The amount of water in here never, ever, ever changes. Never. The only thing that can change the amount of water in here is if the Fed buys or sells assets. That's it. So this water, excess reserves, stays the same. What ends up happening is when I create a loan, I create more water. I don't lend out the water in the bottle. I create more water, and I give the water to the guy with the cup. So I've got the same amount of water. Now he has this much water in his cup. So now there's more water than we had to begin with. And then when that guy pays the water back to me, then the water is destroyed. That's why we say the commercial banking system creates the money. And that's why guys like Mike Maloney always say that we have a debt-based monetary system. All money comes into existence through debt. It has to be lent into existence. You see? So that's what you got to get your head around. And very few people get that. They think that you've got this water or these bank reserves, and they lend it out by pouring it into someone else's cup and giving it to them. But just to reiterate, that's not how it works. The amount of water or bank reserves never ever changes unless the Fed buys or sells assets. So that those bank reserves are getting paid on it regardless. They create more water. They create more money supply. They don't lend out bank reserves. Hopefully that made sense. Don't have a whiteboard, so I had to use my little water bottle here. Oh, well, Nicholas, you just had the same question, basically. Nicholas asked, does fractional reserve system still exist in banks? Please explain. What's weird about fractional reserve banking is if you look at the balance sheet, at the end of the day, the balance sheets kind of are the same if you have a transaction. But again, they're not lending out that money like you would think of in a fractional reserve system, where they were lending out like physical gold, where you're not like creating more gold, you're actually lending it out. That's what most people think of when they think of fractional reserve. So I don't like to really use the term fractional reserve, although the balance sheets kind of wind up looking the same, because it gives people a wrong impression, just like Tez, just like his question or her question, when if you say fractional reserve, it implies that they're lending out money, and that's not true. They're creating more money through the loans themselves, or they're creating new money. The question, would you be concerned of potential rising rates if your home was a variable interest rate lien position HELOC at 1.5 under prime? Would you refinance? Yeah, I would. Well, a HELOC, so let me see here. Well, if I'm understanding the question, it looks like you've got a home equity line of credit. So I don't know if you've used that line of credit, Chelsea, or it's just there waiting for you to pull the trigger. If your home was in a variable interest rate lien position. Yeah, see, I don't know if you've used the HELOC. If you use the HELOC, then yeah, you definitely want to refi it and lock in a rate. You want it, they call it, you want to term out the loan at a 30-year fixed rate. If you have not used the HELOC, then, I mean, it doesn't really matter. So I guess that's probably how I'd answer the question best. Oh, let's see. This chat really got messed up on me. I'm sorry, guys. The audio issues and the chat. Oh, here you go, Pat. Yeah. What is your opinion on mobile homes, trailer homes as investment properties for the near future? I've seen more and more renters in Vegas showing interest. Yeah, I like that, Pat. I really do. I think it's a neat way to go long vol with the trailer parks, because if you think of volatility as as asset prices going down, and now keep in mind we can't have volatility to the upside as well, but I think you have more volatility, and that's what you need to really hedge against, is this downside volatility in asset prices, asset prices crashing basically. And if if you have that scenario like I was talking about before, where the stock market goes down and by 50% just stays there in nominal terms, people are going to be looking for the cheapest cost of housing, the cheapest way to put a roof over their head, trailer park. And so, but then of course you make your money on the buy side. I'm not saying go out to buy any trailer park because they could be wildly overpriced. I don't know. But I am saying, as far as from a macro standpoint, I think they're very interesting. And if you know what you're doing, and if you can get one at a good price, and if you could somehow, get some good financing on it, I doubt you get a long-term fixed rate loan, but maybe you could, maybe a 20-year at least. And I think that's very interesting. I like it a lot. I think it's a neat way to go long volatility. Where would you go if you want to leave Western countries in COVID vaccine madness? That's a great question. That's something I've asked myself a lot. And I mean, I'm not here to say that you should take a vaccine or you shouldn't take a vaccine, but if you're one of those people that doesn't want to take one, I mean, what do you do? What do you do if they come out with and by the way, if you look at even if this vaccine that they have goes through, for the average Joe, they're not going to be able to get it until maybe the summer of 2020, or excuse me, 2021. So, but what do you do if they put a gun to your, well, not literally, but if they say, listen, you have to take this vaccine, or if you don't, then you just can't go anywhere. You can't travel, you can't go to the grocery store. And in the vaccine, they put something so you can read it. So they put like a metal detector every time you go into the grocery store that beeps to say that you're clear or whatever. And so, sure, you can not get the vaccine, but you just can't get on a plane, you can't get on a bus, you can't go into a grocery store, you can't go into a restaurant, you can't go into a gym. What do you do? And it's not too far-fetched of an idea. I mean, we could see something like that come down by next summer, especially with President Kamala Harris in office, right? So I think for those people who are not worried about a vaccine, then don't worry about it. You're good to go. But for people who are, I think you need to have that discussion with yourself right now. And I obviously, Steph, it sounds like you've been having that dialogue with yourself or maybe your family members. I think I mean, who knows how countries go about it. I really have a hard time seeing developing countries, institute something where you had to have a vaccine or they wouldn't let you into XYZ nightclub or gym or whatever. I just, maybe they will, but it's going to be the probabilities of it happening in a country like Colombia or, Tanzania or Montenegro. It's going to be much, much lower than in someplace like the United States. Why? They just don't have the infrastructure. I mean, it would be totally, there's just no way that they might have a vaccine, but to force you to take it in order to get into these establishments. Not only that, but you got to understand that rules and laws in places like South America, and a lot of people say, oh, I can't go to South America. I don't have my Second Amendment rights, or I don't have my First Amendment rights, freedom of speech and all this. And yeah, granted, you've got that on the books in the United States, but in practice, I mean, you really don't have that much freedom of speech. Let's be honest. And whereas a country in like Colombia or some others, that although that's not written into their constitution, I would argue you got a lot more freedom of speech than you do here in the United States. And I mean, anyone who doesn't think that, I would try to go on Twitter right now or Facebook and argue that there's only two biological sexes, that there's just a man and woman, and see how far that gets you on Facebook right now. And if you're working in corporate America, if you got a job at like ESPN or Disney or something like that, just try stating that publicly, like on your Twitter feed, and see how long you stay at your job, right? How much freedom of speech is there in practice? Where if you said something like that in Colombia or Croatia or something like that, they just look at you like, why are you even saying that? Of course, duh. And it's nuts. It would be a complete non-issue. So you see where I'm going with that, right? And my point is, I would look at more developing countries. And if you don't want to travel that far, I just look at Mexico. I cannot see them implementing something like that. Maybe they will, but I think it's far less likely. And also, the one thing I'd like to encourage everyone, I see this a lot with my Twitter feed and the comments on my YouTube videos, where people, they say, well, if I move to whatever, St. Bart's, if I move to Croatia, what happens? Or if they say it's about Puerto Rico all the time, well, if I move to Puerto Rico, what happens if in 2 years or 5 years, if they become a state and then Act 2022 is no longer there? What do you mean what happens? You get up and move. It's bizarre to me that people have this this weird concept that if you move somewhere, if you were to move from the United States to Colombia, that's it, you're done. You've made the decision and there's no going back. You can never move back to the United States. You can never move to, Asia. You can never move to Africa. You can never move to the Middle East. Once you've moved, you're done. You're in Colombia jail for the rest of your life, or Puerto Rico jail. It's weird. Yeah, you move to Puerto Rico, and if you don't like it, move. Go somewhere else. Just go somewhere where you're happier and you feel as though you're going to have more personal freedom and more liberty, and their values are more aligned with what your priorities are. You're not a vegetable, for heaven's sakes. Just go somewhere else. Don't worry about it that much. I think people get a little they just get freaked out that once they go somewhere, that's it. They're done. They're never, ever, ever leaving ever again for the rest of their lives. And you're only that you're making mountains out of molehills, I think. And that's a mental thing. It doesn't, no one is putting those constraints on you other than yourself. Nothing can stop the reset. The banks crashed again, but whose reset? World Economic Forum's nobody owns anything, but you will be happy. Klaus Schwab, Trump reset. Oh, they're saying that. I thought that was a question. Sorry about that. Let's see. A question: has the market priced a Trump second term? Oh, I'm not sure, but I don't think the market's going to really be blindsided by anything right now. It's a lot different than it was in 2016, and I think it's all just stimulus and liquidity. So fundamentals don't matter at all in the market. In fact, I would argue there's almost an inverse correlation between the fundamentals of the real economy and the stock market. So I don't know. I mean, it's a fun thought experiment, but I wouldn't really let it affect my decision-making process as far as my investments. Is it worth trying to break into investment banking? I don't know. I can't really answer that for you. It depends on what you like. You got to do something that you're going to enjoy doing. if it's just making money, I think there's a lot better ways to make money right now than in investment banking. That said, if you know what you're doing and if you're good at it, you can make a ton of money. But I think there's, especially now online, man, you got so much opportunity. But I can't answer that question for you. It just depends on where your interests lie. All right, trying to get some newer questions. Max Kaiser says Bitcoin is better than golf because can be confiscated. Oh, better than gold. You put golf. I'm like, Bitcoin and golf? Okay. Do you think Bitcoin is better than gold? It's just, like I always say, I think you're comparing oranges and Ford pickup trucks. Is it better? I don't know. Is Bitcoin better than Apple? I don't know. You're just comparing two things that are completely different, and I don't know why people compare Bitcoin to gold. Bitcoin is potentially a great speculation, and gold is just a store of value, and gold is just an insurance policy. So I don't really compare the two at all. I don't know that one is better than the other because they're just completely different. And they serve different objectives in my portfolio. That's probably a better way to say it. Do I think the Great Reset would push for higher rates? I don't think so, because with the Great Reset, you'd need some serious money printing. And if they're going to pull off everything that they have in their agenda, and that would not, I mean, the market might want to push interest rates up, but they'd probably most likely buy the bonds. You might just have MMT where they just lock interest rates at zero. I mean, that's what Mosler always suggests. Just lock them at zero and don't really issue bonds, or you might want to issue bonds just for some, if the market needs them for XYZ reason, for an asset, just for the balance sheet. But just you keep rates at zero. And I don't know how he figures that would work with the commercial banking system. Maybe he's just talking about Fed funds. You just keep it at zero forever, and then just let the banking system kind of. See, the thing is, though, the banking system, if they did that and they didn't lock down the long end of the curve, and you got all that money printing that started to create inflation, I mean, the yield curve would just steepen, just almost go parabolic if they were trying to, lock down the short end at zero. So I don't know how Mosler would see that one working out. I mean, I don't think the MMT folks have thought through inflation very well. I think they really get how the monetary system works to a certain degree. I think that they kind of misinterpret a few things. But as far as what happens when we get inflation, I just don't think they've got any good answers for that. Even when Stephanie Kelton was talking to Eric Townsend, my good buddy with Macro Voices, she really didn't answer any of his questions. She's kind of tap dancing around the inflation question. And I mean, just to increase taxes, that's laughable. That would be something that you would that would work to slow down inflation, and that for a lot of different reasons. But so anyway, I think that they would want low rates, but if the market might push them higher on the long end of the curve, they might not have control over it. I'm not sure. But they're not going to push for higher rates. I don't think that would happen. When it's time for stiff drink time, what do I reach for? Just, I don't know. I just have a beer or something. I went out Friday night and what do we get? We just had, I just let everyone order. Basically, I kind of let everyone order. I typically just pay for everything. We had, I don't know, we had a couple bottles, some of tequila or whiskey. Yeah, I think I got one of tequila and one of whiskey. But I had just a couple drinks. I was just there, more socializing. I'll probably have a few beers this Saturday night. I definitely want to watch that Tyson fight with Ray Jones Jr. That's going to be awesome. That's going to be super awesome. So I'll probably grab some beers for that for sure. Oh, let's see. I think we've gone an hour, guys. Let me answer one more question. Oh, they're jumping all over the place. Let's see. Trying to find a question here that's applicable to a lot of people. Where is the housing market at in Australia right now? I'm assuming sky high. It's a huge bubble. It's an even bigger bubble than the United States. But for more on that, you gotta check out my buddy Martin Armstrong, or not Martin Armstrong. Martin. What's Martin's last name? Let me give him a good plug here. He's an awesome guy with DFA analysts. Martin North. Yeah. Check out Martin North's channel. It's called Walk the World. He is really, really, really data driven. And he just, man, he looks at the Aussie housing market with like a microscope. And his company goes out and actually polls individuals, like really real people. And it's not just speculative stuff. So, and he gives you the data like several times weekly. So if you want to find out more about the Aussie housing market, check out Martin's channel. Okay, guys. And for those of you who have not looked into Rebel Capitalist Pro, that's my online forum. You got to check it out. I do it with Lynn Alden and Chris McIntosh. They're the pros. I'm the amateur. We've got their research that is fantastic. We do live streams for just the members, these Q&As with Lynn and Chris, and I do them myself as well. I'll be doing one here in about an hour. So right now you can try it out for $1. My marketing guy, Gene, is giving you guys an awesome deal for, we'll call it Thanksgiving. It'll be our Black Friday deal, although we've had it going on for like a month. It's a $1 trial. You go to georgegammon.com/pro. And as always, I want to give some shout outs to everyone that is on here until the end. We still had over 1,000. Last week we had 1,300, probably because of all those rants that I was doing. I guess everyone really liked to hear me go off on my mask rant. But and we had those stupid audio problems. We're going to get those fixed with Sebastian for sure for next week. But let me do some shout outs here. We've got Cameron. We've got High Viz Economist. Good to see you. Eric, we'll see you on the member live stream soon, buddy. Same thing with High Viz Economist. Fat Vegan. Jeffrey. Joseph. Dr. Evil. Arthur, we'll see you in the member chat, buddy. Massa, we'll see you there as well. Joseph, Philip, Caleb, Alfredo Acosta, Dwayne Cece, Jim Ultimate Bargains, Philip, Jack from Phoenix, Travis, Individual, Kay, Meow Mia, something like that. Peter, Joey, oh, Bonobo Man, Wesley, Art, Durandi, Valerie, Rick, DL, Alicia, Dr. Evil, or in other words, Klaus, Alicia, Travi, Faz, Joe G's Craft Cannabis Guides. Wow. Maybe that's the new stiff drink. Just throw down a little weed brownies or something. All right, guys. Enjoy the rest of your weekend, and I will see you on the next video. Make sure you tune in Tuesday night, because that is my interview with the one and only Mike Maloney. We'll see you then, guys.